Those alien bastards are gonna pay for shooting up my ride. This is taking forever. Time to stop pissing around and get this big guy back into action.
Nearly a decade and a half after its announcement, Duke Nukem Forever has finally hit the shelves for gamers to play. After so many years in development, I'm sure many people had outrageously overinflated expectations for the game. And the truth is, no game will ever live up to expectations like that. Now, to be fair, I didn't come into Duke Nukem Forever with super high expectations of it needing to be the best goddamn game ever created. Instead, all I cared about that it had to feel like a Duke Nukem game, and it just had to be fun. Unfortunately, I really didn't get my fulfillment of either of those qualities. Duke is what he is, of course, a misogynistic, stubborn, egotistical braggart who basically is a mix of old Schwarzenegger looks and Bruce Campbell's character of Ash from the Evil Dead series. And this is what helps to make Duke, as a character, pretty endearing, as he spouts off one-liners ripped from pop culture and twists them to fit his own ego. Unfortunately, the lines he spits out feel boring and, for the most part, fairly unfunny. By the time you get to the end of the game, Duke feels almost like a parody of himself. It's a shame that the writing for Duke Nukem wasn't better than it is. There are a few good lines here and there, but they're few and far between. Duke Nukem Forever feels like it doesn't know where it wants to be in time, either. In some ways, it is designed as a very straightforward old-school shooter, but in others it feels more modern at the same time. Obviously, part of this is from the years in development hell, but it would have been nice if the game could just make up its mind about what type of game it wants to be. The weapons, combat, and overuse of outdated first-person platforming elements are very old school in design, but Duke's regenerating health and his limit of carrying only 2 weapons at a time is very much pulled from the games he ridicules throughout Duke Nukem Forever. I also have to say that the aiming on the console versions is fairly inaccurate. It's just hard to line up shots quickly, even if you increase the sensitivity. I suppose I'd have to try it with a mouse and keyboard on the PC to see how it is there, but the shooting in the console versions can get a bit frustrating, especially with how fast enemies can move. That said, there are some fun combat sequences all the same. While the combat can be fun, it's also surprisingly sparse in Duke Nukem Forever. There are entire swaths of the game that are completely devoid of any enemy encounters, which brings a cloud of boredom over those parts of the game, or frustration in the parts that have lots of platforming in them. Let's face it, first-person platforming went the way of the dodo for a reason. Only Nintendo and Retro Studios ever really got it right in the Metroid Prime series, while it was always a giant ball of fail in every other game it was used in. Duke Nukem Forever's platforming elements make me want to sail a fail boat in a sea of tears with how often they are forced upon us. Graphically, Duke Nukem Forever is a pretty ugly game on the consoles. There's horrible texture pop-in all over the levels, and everything in the level design feels very bland and uninspired. The frame rate also has a tendency to suddenly drop for no reason, even when there's no combat going on. Supposedly, the PC version looks better and has the ability to get over 100 frames per second on modern gaming rigs, but the console ports feel very rushed and poorly done. Load times are also abysmally long on the console ports. While the PC version is supposed to be able to load levels in 5 to 10 seconds, the console ports sport load times of at least 30 seconds for almost every loading screen. It's a shame then that for all the loading that we're forced to sit through that the levels aren't longer than they are. Some are extremely short, only a few minutes in length, and some of them with no combat. The loading screens become increasingly annoying if you die a lot, which can happen in some areas as the amount of damage that enemies seem to do to Duke is very disproportionate to the amount of health that he has. Multiplayer is also fairly uninspired and suffers from very bad lag pretty much all the time. This isn't to say that everything about Duke Nukem Forever is bad, though. Duke is still Duke for the most part. There are some genuinely fun combat sequences here and there as well, but unfortunately these things don't really bring Duke Nukem Forever above the level of mediocrity. If you weren't a Duke Nukem fan in the past or are too young to realize how long this game has been in development, then it's a fair comp to say skip Duke Nukem Forever. Old school Duke fans might want to own it just to say they waited for it, but on the whole I can't recommend Duke Nukem Forever to the masses. There are much better shooters out there to go spend your time and money on.
He's so cute, all small like that. I just want to put him in a burger and eat him up. Oh, please don't fall!
I've got balls of fail.